Bloody Jacob here to give you my thoughts on Shelter. Now, it is another January, and thus, as most have been saying, another January, another Jason Statham actioner. And I am a big fan of Jason Statham. I've really always enjoyed what the guy's done since the first Transporter and onward. Ghost of Mars before that. And to me, as a major, die-hard action genre fan, he's kind of like something of a modern day Renaissance man of sorts for the genre. A torchbearer, you could say as well. Um, I was talking to someone online a few days ago, and they tried to use the phrase, "Oh, it feels like his movies feel like '90s action movies," as a complaint. And that's when I knew to dismiss that argument and not take it seriously at all. Um, and Jason Statham is fully aware of the niche he's in. He spoke about it recently. He doesn't necessarily even see himself as like a, actor or, a dramatic actor necessarily. He kind of knows his wheelhouse. He believes in what he's good at, and he thinks, he should stick to what people want to see out of him when they go to a Statham movie, which I think is a totally fair, mindset to have. Now, would I like to see him kind of do something a little different at some point? Sure, I'm sure he will. He's verging on 60 years old, but he's still operating like he did, back in the 2010s or late 2000s. So I'm sure at some point he'll do something a little more, off his path. But at the same time, right now, I don't see a problem with him still doing what he does either. Now, Shelter comes to us from Rick Roman Wow, and he has quite an extensive history. You go back before he was even a director in the 90s. He had like a small credited part in a movie called Cuffs with Christian Slater, but he did, stunt work too in movies like Last Action Hero, Days of Thunder, Tango and Cash, even Gone in 60 Seconds, Last of the Mohicans of all things. And directing wise, I think he's becoming quite the overlooked Helmer these days of different movies. Because a lot of what he does are like, kind of smaller scale, more character driven, like thrillers or crime dramas. Like he did one of with Stephen Dorff and Val Kilmer in the late 2000s called Felon, which I liked. He did one called Snitch in 2013 with Dwayne Johnson, which for Dwayne Johnson was kind of one of his more grounded movies too. But more recently, he did like Shot Caller with Nikolai Coster-Waldau, and Angel Has Fallen, the third in the Gerard Butler Has Fallen series, which happened to add a bit more character focus in that movie, which I don't think is a coincidence. And of course, the two Greenland movies. I freaking love the first Greenland. It's my favorite disaster movie of all time. And Greenland 2 I had some issues with, but still a pretty good sequel. So I was pretty eager for the prospect of him doing a movie like this too. And this movie doesn't really like break any walls or anything like that. It still very much is what you're expecting when you go to a Statham movie, but that's intentional. You combine that and then just maybe that touch of humanity and character weight that Rick Wellman Waugh's movies usually bring. And I think that's what you get here with Shelter. I thought it was pretty good. Um, I was a little worried watching the trailer because it has a kind of a different setting for a Statham movie. I think of the lighthouse and the island and stuff. It'd probably cause them to have to like utilize different weapons and resources and stuff like that. Um, and nearly do move away from the lighthouse because I like the kind of just the different setting and location of that. But luckily, there's no like big city or anything like that. It's they move into like a town, but it's a kind of more rural town area. So it kind of still felt different, for a Statham movie for sure. Basically, of course, it's the usual story. He's a recluse. He had some kind of violent, shadowy past. Being a part of some kind of syndicate organization. Special ops of some sort. Highly classified. And Bill Nye's character has, a connection to him as well with knowing of him in the years prior. Good to see him in this. He's more of like the authority figure behind the desk type in this, but I've always liked him as even in especially in the Underworld movies. But basically, this girl and her uncle, who Statham's known for a while, bring some supplies and food and everything like that, and there's a storm that strikes, and something happens to the uncle, and then he ends up taking care of the young girl who is injured. Bodhi Ray Brathwaite, I'm sure I mispronounced her name, but she did a fine job in the movie too. They start to bond just a little bit, and of course, once Statham's location is picked up on through certain means, men are sent after him, and they have to, flee the lighthouse and everything like that. And it's kind of a little on the run movie after that. There's also a dog in this, and as a dog lover, I'm always a little bit on edge. Having lost mine, sometime in the past year or two, but thankfully it's nothing like exploitive or anything like that, and it's handled respectfully, and the dog matters. There's actually an effect the dog has on the characters, so that's about as much as I can ask for. So I appreciated that. And it is like smaller scale. It does have a more intimate feel, which I actually like. I see a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, it's better than A Working Man," which I don't get why people had such a problem with that one versus A Beekeeper. But Beekeeper had a bit more, personality or humor to it, I guess. But a lot of people are putting in between the two. It just depends on my mood. I think it goes right alongside those and movies like Wrath of Man recently. This one's probably the most serious out of all of them. But I could see myself on the day preferring Shelter. And in terms of action, it's all on par with each other too. Statham handles the choreography as competently as ever. Rick Ross talked about that in a lot of interviews too. There was a focus on a lot of practical car chases in this one, and you can feel it when you watch it. And the main showdown is fairly gratifying for the most part. I think it could have gone on a little longer. Every beat you see coming, but it absolutely delivers what it is. It is as advertised, so to speak. And I liked it. It's exactly what I went out to see and what I wanted, what I paid to see. And I'm happy to keep supporting movies like this. And I think Statham's one of the damn best at it, whether you're talking about this era or the 80s or 90s. So yeah, Letterboxd probably getting like a 3.5 out of 5 or so, something like that. Follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, later.